Ladies and gentlemen, drivers and gig workers, and everyone in between, welcome to This Week in Rideshare podcast. Happy Friday, everyone. It is September 23rd, 2022. We're back yet again with some more interesting rideshare and gig worker related news. And of course, I am not alone. I am joined by Legal Rideshare's co founder and lead attorney, Brian Greening. How are you doing, buddy?
I'm doing great, Jared. I'm excited for another Friday here.
Yeah, we took a little break there, but now we're back at it. And as always, there's never a shortage of stories. So we're going to jump right into it. We're going to hit it off with Monday. An Amazon driver went viral after quitting due to long hours and excessive work. And this is coming from Daily Dot. So he said, quote, he claims that if drivers don't finish their delivery routes as fast as other drivers within 12 hours, the app will kick them out. He says that Amazon's dispatch has sent him messages on his personal cell asking him to log off. He's also said things like he's never gotten a raise. He's been there for 4 or 5 years. And eventually he just kind of said, I'm tired of it. I'm tired of peeing in bottles. I'm tired of not having breaks. I'm done. And, this kind of blew up. Some people were applauding him. Some people were kind of saying this is ridiculous. But Brian, I'd love to hear your side of this.
Yeah, there's a couple things to think about here. One is the environment for workers. It sounds like this is a really, really tough job that's requiring him to live in almost inhumane conditions. He's talking about peeing in bottles instead of stopping at restrooms. That's crazy. And then the other side here is safety. The fact that the Amazon is requiring drivers to work in poor conditions, race through their day, do an amount of work that doesn't seem feasible. It's putting dangerous drivers on the road because the drivers are tired, they're frustrated, they're hurried. It's just a really bad combination all the way around.
Yeah, it is. And as usual, we always bring this up, but basically, this is not the first time I've heard this. This is not the first time someone's gone viral on social media saying, look, this is the situation. I mean, we've even heard, and we'll discuss it a little bit later during the week. I mean, there's just stories about Amazon being quite risky to work for and kind of pushing people to the limits, both drivers, gig workers, and even the companies they hire in general. So, not a surprise that this is a situation. But again, as we keep saying, if things don't change, this is going to keep happening. It's just
Yeah,
kind
and
of, it's the deal.
And just to jump in there, this is something that we see every day in our practice because we're representing both Amazon drivers and people who are injured due to Amazon drivers' negligence. We take on workers' compensation cases for drivers who are facing these really hard conditions with repetitive lifting and twisting and turning and sometimes car accidents themselves in which they're injured. So that's the driver's side. And then on the rest of the community is at risk because drivers are causing accidents because they're exhausted. So it's just, legal rideshare is seeing this on both sides, and we're representing people on both sides, and really no one's a winner here.
No, exactly. That's the key. You nailed it. No one's a winner. We're going to hit to Tuesday. So if you want to keep driving for Uber, you're going to need an EV by 2030. Bazinga reported, quote, Uber is committing to becoming a zero emission platform in the US and in Canadian cities, as well as some major urban centers around the world, by phasing out all gas powered vehicles by 2030. They say that by switching, it's going to reduce air pollution in congested cities and encouraging gas powered vehicle owners to make this transition. They did say they're going to be starting a Green Future program, which gives drivers access to about $800 million worth of resources to try to help them out. But I know that's the way we're going. And again, I want you to weigh in on this. This is going to be tough for the drivers. I know it's a little ways off. I can't imagine this is going to be an easy transition to get drivers to just jump to the EVs.
No, I don't think it will be. Drivers have enough trouble keeping their cars, in shape as it is. It's most of these drivers that we see that are driving their own personal vehicles are not driving new cars. You see a lot of older cars on the road, and the Uber's not paying drivers enough to upgrade a lot of times. So it is going to be a difficult transition to get a new electric vehicle in drivers' hands. Now that said, we've seen the companies form some partnerships with rental companies that are putting Teslas on the road and putting other electric vehicles on the road. So as long as the rideshare companies are supporting the drivers and giving them options that make sense from a cost perspective, maybe this can go off without a hitch. But it is up to the rideshare company to make that an available and accessible option.
Exactly. We've seen this in both directions. It's you got to support the drivers and let them have that transition. And we saw this first backfire and then get a little bit better, I think is a good example was like the pandemic. So in the beginning, Uber, they first sort of, it seemed like they sort of ignored it. We actually stepped up. Legal Rideshare started that sick day program. Then, Uber's like, nah, whatever. And then, they jumped in and said, okay, now we're going to give resources, which did sort of give a little buffer to drivers during that time. But then again, at the end, it kind of fell apart. So we have seen in some programs, Uber, drops the ball. Other times they do help with the transitional period, but that is going to be so key. You just did a video of the gig worker roundtable with driver technologies and stable insurance. And one thing that stood out was Marcus at Driver Technologies. He said the average car on the road, especially for gig workers, is 12 years old. So if you're talking 12 years old and that's the average car of Uber and Lyft drivers, telling them, okay, you're going to need a brand new car that's an EV car, yeah, they're going to need some help. They're just going to.
These are not cheap vehicles. Now, I'm not going to complain that I've been cruising around in a Tesla a lot of times when I've been calling
Of course,
an
right?
Uber.
Yeah.
But I really want to see there be some available resources and programs that help drivers make this transition. Because if Uber leaves it all up to the driver, I don't know that this is a goal that can be met.
Yeah, I agree. And again, we've seen that when they don't meet the goal, it kind of hits a wall and then everyone starts pointing fingers. Don't want to see
Right.
that. We'll head to Wednesday. No shocker here. A new study suggests Prop 22 is hurting drivers. Wired reported the study is done by Policy Link, which is a progressive research group, and also by Rideshare Drivers United, which is a California driver advocacy group. They found that after rideshare drivers in the state, pay for all the costs associated with driving, so gas and vehicle wear and tear, they make about $6.20 an hour, which is well below the California's minimum wage of $15 an hour. The research then said if drivers were made employees rather than the independent contractors, which Prop 22 kept, they would make an additional $11 an hour. Now, this was published on Wednesday. I'm basically saying, look, these drivers are worse off now than they were in the past. We kind of saw, I feel like we kind of saw this coming. I feel like you have literally been on front of TV and in papers and in blogs on websites and podcasts discussing this is probably going to go this way.
Yeah, we knew this from the beginning. There's a reason why Uber and Lyft and DoorDash and all those companies spent over $200 million trying to get Prop 22 through. It's because it worked for them, and it didn't really work for the drivers. This codified um, for the gig companies some really advantageous business outcomes, and also codified against the drivers in terms of protections on benefits of employment and protections in terms of workers' compensation or certain reimbursements that you might be able to get from an employer. We knew that this was going to happen, and now this study just kind of solidifies that we were right all along.
All right, so I'd be curious to see if this has any repercussions or any kind of realities of the other cities that, Uber and Lyft and the gig companies were trying to push another versions of Prop 22 through. Maybe this will kind of open everyone's eyes. Maybe it'll do nothing. But yeah, we kind of saw it coming. It's unfortunate for the drivers. Hopefully it gets flipped or it gets adjusted. Something as usual has to change. So we will see. We'll head to Thursday. Reports of sexual assault continue to plague Uber. Bangor Daily News reported a woman who accused her Uber driver of assaulting her in early June gave the region its first exposure to the problems. This is the first time in Bangor this was an issue. But, as we know, and as the article states, this is the first reported case in this area. However, there's been thousands of ride-hailing apps drivers and passengers have reported being sexually assaulted or raped over the past several years. And this all kind of started in that safety report the company began publishing in 2019. So once again, I feel like a broken record. Here we are again, yet again, with the situation.
Yeah, safety is paramount, and this is something that we've been talking about since the beginning of legal rideshare. If rideshare is not safe, it's not viable, and we're seeing that people are starting to get scared of using the service, and it's really devastating because we believe in rideshare. We believe that that it helps bring people together. It has a lot of benefits for the community in terms of transportation and last mile, and you can name a thousand ways in which it's helping. But we keep hearing over and over that people are being hurt because the companies are not requiring safety. Um, the Uber safety report, the Lyft safety report, those are really devastating numbers. Uber and Lyft say, it only happens in point whatever rides. It doesn't happen that often. Well, until it's nearly never happening, until we're at zero assaults, the rideshare companies need to be taking measures to improve the product, or else it's just not going to be something that people are going to continue to use.
Oh, exactly. And what's sad about this whole situation is when I saw this article, I wasn't shocked that this happened. I was shocked that this was the first time in that region it happened. And that's not a good thing.
Right.
Like you said, it needs to be the other way around.
And I can almost surely promise you that this is not the first time that this has happened in this region. It's the first reported. We know that sexual assault is often under or unreported. We these are crimes that people a lot of times sadly go unpunished for. So we've got one survivor who's willing to to essentially go public with what happened, but that does not mean that this is the first time or first instance in this region. And I would be shocked if that were the case.
Yeah, that's a really good point. All right, well, head to the end of the week here. Amazon is under fire for hiring dangerous trucking companies. The Wall Street Journal reported, quote, they included one company whose driver was found with a crack pipe after running an Amazon trailer into a Minnesota ditch. He was convicted of driving while high. Another driver hauling Amazon freight was involved in a fatal accident in Kansas after losing control while braking. 2 months after his employer ignored a police order to fix the truck's brakes. All three companies that Uber works with, these trucking companies, have received unsafe driving scores that have raised red flags at the U.S. Transportation Department. Um, and basically, all their scores that these trucking companies are working under Amazon have scored worse than the levels at which the DOT typically takes action. This is pretty crazy. So, they're long obviously break it down, Amazon is hiring the worst of the worst to take their trucks across the country, and these people are crashing them. They're high. They should already be flagged if they weren't even working for Amazon as their trucking company. Pretty crazy stuff, Brian.
Yeah, profits over safety is never a formula for success. It may seem like it in the short term, but this is going to come back to bite Amazon, and already has in a lot of ways. We have seen numerous cases involving fatalities, serious injuries, um, as it relates to Amazon delivery trucks, and those are only going to continue to grow if the company refuses to require safety as part of its platform.
Yeah, I mean, it's gotten so big that we've actually launched a spin-off company just to focus on some of these issues with Amazon. If you want to explain, what we're doing now and how to kind of combat this to help everyone on the road.
Yeah, so we started AmazonAccident.com because we were getting so many inquiries about Amazon accidents. And as I was saying earlier in our conversation, this is coming from both sides. It's Amazon drivers who are being injured due to the conditions and just the hazards of the job. And it's the people in the community who are being injured because of Amazon's negligence. So it's just such a problem that here we are again, entering a space that 10 years ago we didn't even know existed, um, or it didn't exist. So it's in terms of liability, in terms of accident injury law. I hate to see that we need to step up and
Right.
create this platform, but we do because there's so many people getting hurt out there.
Yeah, it's true. And as we always say, I think the thread of every single podcast we've done is if it doesn't change, which a lot of times we're seeing it's not changing, it's just going to continue with all of these issues, from the assaults to the accidents, you name it. if they're not changing or stepping up, it's going to keep happening. And guess what? If it keeps happening, we're going to keep being there because that's what we do.
Right. You know, we need to see these big companies make change. Um, that's been a theme ever since legal rideshare started, is demanding better. And I can tell you that there hasn't been a safety change for Uber, for Lyft, for Amazon that we've seen make a real meaningful difference. And these multi-billion-dollar companies that are some of the most innovative entities in the world can do better. So, you know, let this be, you know, we'll put our flag in the sand here. It's time. Let's go.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, as always, Brian, I appreciate you hopping on here. I'll give you the last word if you just want to again give a little explainer of what Legal Rideshare does, and then we'll end it there.
Yeah, so Legal Rideshare is the first law firm in the United States that's entirely dedicated to gig worker accident and injury claims. So, if you're injured on the job, if you've you know, gotten a car accident, a slip and fall, if you're a delivery driver who's been bit by a dog, something like that, we can help. We can put money in your pocket to pay for medical bills, recover lost wages, recover money for pain and suffering. And consultations are always free. So if you've got a question, reach out to us via our website, legalrideshare.com. You can give us a call. Whatever the best way is for you to reach us, we're available.
Awesome. Well, yeah, that is the end. As I like to say, that is the end of this week in Rideshare. See you next time.